Hi Virgo, welcome to the Modern Spiritualist. My name is Rahim. We're going to look at May for you today. You can use this for Virgo, Sun, Moon, Rising, or North Node for the month of May, or any other placement that you care about. I'm using up on a weight today, plus a Threads of Fate Oracle for your Catalyst energy. Your Catalyst energy is going to serve as like the highest vibration possible, so it kind of threads through these other cards in this spread and reminds us what we're doing here in terms of kind of moving towards your health and well-being and higher self. So if you get lost in process, you can always refer back to the Catalyst energy to remind you what's going on. And we'll start there. So Catalyst, we have share, wisdom, very earthy energy, very like teacher archetype energy. Yeah, I feel like you're in a place right now where I feel like you're on really solid ground, like things feel solid in a new way, actually. And you feel very, there's an energy that's like very sure of itself. Like you feel more sure of yourself than you have in recent months. And I really do feel kind of like a comfortable container, like and feeling like I am well contained, but also like I have momentum or motion, or like fluidity, like I have space around me, but I'm still being held well. And so maybe this is just where you're at, you know, and because of that, you have something to offer. You know, something got you here. This place of like really firm ground and feeling safe, but feeling like you have access to things and you feel liberated and, you know, able to move around even though you're being held, which is like the perfect place to be. And I kind of see it here too. It's like what I just said, like the roots are grounding you and that you have this kind of like container around the rest of you that kind of just allows you to be safe within yourself. It feels really, really good. It's the best I've felt in a reading for this kind of platform in a long time, actually. And this is the high note. This is the opportunity this month. And so it looks like everything that you're doing is kind of supporting this energy. And it's like great on multiple levels because like there's this aspect of you that's made it here now for your own health and wellness and well-being and ability to do things in the world in a good way. And the other thing is because this is the shared wisdom card and because I'm also feeling it, it's like you have something to teach here. Not that you have to teach, but like you have something to share or teach or offer or hold space for in some sort of capacity for other people that have gone through something similar maybe. It seems like you really have something to offer the world now based on what you've been through the last few months. And it looks like there's a lot of open space to kind of develop that further. Maybe you're stepping into your authority or your maturity in a good way that allows you to kind of say, oh, I do have something to offer. And it comes out of your own experience. So I hope that makes sense. That's what we're starting with. That's awesome. And moving into the Celtic Cross spread, at the center, we have the Five of Wands reversed. I like this better in the reverse for you. And it looks like it's like it's one of two reversal energies in this deck. So there's a lot of momentum this month, it seems. Ability to stand up and kind of be in the world. But we'll see. So Five of Wands reverse is like this choice that you're making to no longer fight yourself, to no longer have these internal battles with yourself, and instead to kind of figure out how you can come to a compromise within the disparate voices within you that may have like different agendas or different priorities or whatever. Kind of stepping out of blame, shame, and judgment, kind of stepping into open acceptance of everything, and just allowing yourself to be who you are and holding space for the energies within you that are what they are. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's always comfortable, but it means that you are open to being in that discomfort so that it can shift. You know, if you avoid the discomfort, then nothing ever shifts because you kind of have to be in that discomfort to and address it to make things happen. So making the choice to say, I can be in this discomfort, you know, is what creates actual change. It's what creates that container. So you're in a good spot here. This choice not to fight yourself. Let's see what else comes through. Crossing that energy is the Ten of Cups. This is like the happy family card. Yeah, the children are like playing and dancing. The parents are like waving. There's like a river running through it. It's lush. There's a rainbow above them. Happy family card. I feel like this is mostly just about you and you. Like, I've chosen not to fight myself anymore, which means that there's going to be harmony within yourself, you know, and that harmony, again, doesn't necessarily mean that everything's perfect. It means that everyone's talking to each other. And via talking to each other, via open communication, things can shift. And so, and the beautiful thing about that is that once you accept that and really move into all that like nervous tension or all that energy, conflicting energy inside you, what you'll find is that the second you embrace intense feeling, it tends to get very pleasurable, and kind of ecstatic, because things are, everything in you likes your attention and doesn't always get it, right? Especially if it's things you've avoided for a long time. And so the second you give it attention, it gets excited, right? Kind of like observing a quantum particle. It behaves differently when observed. Same thing. The things inside you behave differently when observed. And so I'm feeling this observational energy, your ability to look inside yourself, creating excitement. And through there, if you keep accepting it, keep accepting, moving deeper into this energy that you're giving attention to, and start to, basically meld with it and converge with it through that acceptance and curiosity and compassion, it will shift. And the way that I kind of view this as, I view my body as this microcosm, right? Just representative of the macrocosm, but it's its own individualized entity, smaller than the macro, right? But I is this conscious energy that's driving this body, right? And basically the God of my own microcosm. I am the God, and everything inside me is kind of at my will. So I think of it as like, be a good God. Like if you came to God right now with all of your shame and judgment and insecurity and confusion, what would you hope that God would do, right? See you, affirm for you, tell you there's nothing wrong with you, maybe help you identify what those things are coming from, even though in his infinite wisdom he already knows, right? And not that you have to believe in God in this way. I'm just saying, as a metaphor here. I mean, it's real for me, but I'm not saying it has to be real for you in this way that I'm framing it, right? But however you see the highest power, if you were in front of God with all of your shame, and all of those feelings, that fear, maybe all the ways that you feel like you've done wrong or didn't understand something or weren't worthy, all of your shit. I guess the hope would be that, that you'd be seen for what you are, which is a person that went through certain experiences and made the best choices they could with what they had. That's what most of us do, right? And so when I'm confronting wounded parts of me within myself, wounded children, many of which have disparate agendas from each other, because neither of them are in alignment, or none of them are, that's why they're separate from me, from the conscious being that's driving this wheel, right? I'm like, okay, how can I be a good God right now for these wounded parts of me? First, I want to figure out what's wrong. Then I want to confirm for them why it feels valid that they made the choices they did or feel the way they feel. And then I would, offer my perspective from my infinite wisdom, right? To help them kind of restructure and recontextualize and consolidate whatever their problem is so that they can heal and realign with me. And so I really see the highest alignment as everybody in me is one voice, right? With the same agenda. I see misalignment, and we all have variances of misalignment. That's the point of this experience, is learning that alignment. You have to be misaligned to align. Is that, I have all these voices in me that are just misaligned, and I need to align them into my full microcosm so that I can be this God with this vessel that is cultivated to the perfection of my vision, right? So I see myself as the God of me and everything inside myself. And once I did that, once I made that choice, it was 10 of Cups all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm happy all the time. It certainly doesn't. Or comfortable all the time. It certainly doesn't. In fact, I'm just so used to being uncomfortable that it feels comfortable. And because of that, I'm able to shift things very fast, right? Because I accept them as they are at face value, and I trust my power to heal them, the things inside myself. So I feel like this is kind of the offer here, is when you choose to step away from internal conflict, or step away from making more story out of that internal conflict, or obsessing over the conflict, or avoiding the conflict. All these ways that we shut ourselves down from ourselves, right? This choice to step away from that inner conflict, to be able to see that conflict as an observer, gives way to this Ten of Cups energy, which is the happy family card within yourself. It doesn't mean that the work is done. It means that you're up to the task, and you have committed to it, and fully accepted it for what it is. And through that acceptance usually comes excitement, joy, motivation, desire to continue to do it. It starts to fuel you. It starts to fulfill you. The work itself starts to fulfill you. It stops being about the end result and starts being about, every wounded child that you find within yourself gets to find their true home again. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Wouldn't you want to do that? I literally feel inconvenienced every moment that I'm not now. And it's not because, that's an exaggeration, because that's its own thing that I could probably address inside myself. But my point being that, the time that I get to move into my inner landscape and interact with what's there and heal it is precious, precious time. And I like to have as much of it as I possibly can. Yes, I love being in the world. I'm not saying that I don't at all. I'm not saying that this is an inconvenience. I enjoy doing this. My point, I guess, was just, as common as it is to push away, to avoid, to get lost into an addiction pattern, or to dissociate, or to find ways to block ourselves from ourselves, as enticing as that seems while you're doing it, the second you just accept and flip the switch and kind of pursue instead of avoid the things inside yourself, not only does everything improve, not only does life around you vastly improve, because you're responding to it differently, and then you're bringing in new things, you're attracting new different things that kind of match your wiring process, As you make that switch, you just start feeling the opposite way about it. All the ways that you've avoided seem uncomfortable. It would be very uncomfortable for me right now to have a glass of whiskey and to shove it all away. And I'm not saying whiskey's a bad thing. I could have a glass of whiskey and confront it. But my point is that, you could be using certain things. It doesn't have to be substances. And just because you're using substances doesn't mean you're in avoidance. That's not what I mean. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But whatever your avoidant tasks are, for me, it just was alcohol for a while. So that's what I used. That's what I'm saying now. Is that whatever you're using to be avoidant, it just stops being enticing once you kind of get to the other side of that and start pursuing yourself fully and radically and compassionately and truthfully, being real with yourself. There's really no going back at a certain point, because you don't want to. Suddenly the joy of life is in loving yourself, ultimately. And so that's what this month feels like. It feels like the opportunity to make the switch from internal struggle and avoidance into radical love, radical self-love. So that's no small thing. Past affecting the present, Page of Pentacles. You've already started this journey. This isn't your first day, obviously. You wouldn't be here at the Share Wisdom part of the experience if this was your first day. I know how, at least my viewers, how Virgos have been the past year. So I know that you've been through a lot, and I feel like it's important to celebrate that this month, how far you've come, because it matters, especially when you're really stagnant, when it's really, really hard to get off the starting block and it feels like everything's against you and you do it anyway. That is huge. That is huge. And I think it's easy to miss that, to think that oh, I did that, but I shouldn't have been there in the first place, and it shouldn't have been that hard in the first place, and I should be over there where that person is. No comparison, no shame, blame, or judgment. You getting off that starting block when everything was against you and everything was stagnant is a huge accomplishment. It's the hardest part. The hardest part. I do crazy transformative things every day. Yes, and it seems impressive, and it is impressive, and it's way easier for me to move giant pieces of energy or transform giant pieces of energy now than it was for me to get off that starting block, to get up and take a shower. At my most depressed, it was way harder for me to get up and take a shower than it is for me to move enormous amounts of energy today. You know what I mean? So it's like, even though what I'm doing now is big and wild and impressive, and people want to do what I do and whatever, it's like no, well, this is easy. This is the easy part for me because I've been at the hard part, and it's not the same, right? So I think there's a way bigger accomplishment in being really depressed and getting up and changing your clothes and taking a shower and eating a meal than it is for somebody like me who's very well supported at this point to accomplish a lot. I think that being depressed and getting in the shower is harder. I think it's more of a testament to willpower and being able to accomplish something. And I've been there too, so I'm not axing myself. I've been the person that could barely take a shower, and I think it's harder, right? So don't shame yourself for the little steps that you take, because if they were still hard, then that is a huge accomplishment. And when you have to face your fear, when you have to face all this stagnation, when you have to grit your teeth and do the work, and in your confusion barely even know what's going on and still just like doing it anyway, kind of halfway in the dark, like that is so huge. It requires so much warriorship to do that. And so the past is supporting you this month. The Page of Pentacles, you've taken the initial steps and they were hard, and you're here now. And so isn't that incredible? And don't you have so much to celebrate within yourself for that? So yeah. Foundation, King of Swords. High thoughts, like high-minded thoughts. Looks like you're really kind of refining, repairing, adding to your worldview. Learning, you could be in a place of learning right now. But what I like about this is the king is sitting here on his throne, and he's so much bigger than the earth. Like, look at how he's like towering over these trees or whatever. It looks like what you're thinking about. And this is what's supporting you. This is what's grounding you, which is great. What you're thinking about is like very higher purposey. Like, you're really thinking, soul's purpose, what am I doing here? What's my worldview? How do I choose to look at life? And it all feels very fluid. Like, you realize that this is just a choice to make. That your perception is a choice to make. And it looks like you're just taking what continues to resonate and leaving the rest and building on what is resonating. And it's working for you. Like, the king is the highest court card, right? And so this isn't like, Page of Swords would be you're taking the steps, you're getting new information, you're taking the steps towards getting to that high place. The Queen of Swords, you still have information to absorb and kind of chew on and look at, but you're almost there, right? The King of Swords is like, you're there. You're like, I know what I believe in. I know who I believe myself to be. I know what I want. I have my system in place and it works for me. And you're right. You're absolutely right. So your worldview, your philosophy is supporting you this month. I like that. So crowning you this month, we have the Seven of Swords and the Ten of Pentacles, which was like hiding. It's so funny because this is the card of deception. And I literally pulled out the Seven of Swords, right? And this card, the other card was right behind it, and I didn't see that it was there. And then when I set the card down on the table, I saw it. And I was like, oh, there's a little extra one here. So I just think that's funny that this is like about deception and hiding things, and this Ten of Pentacles, which is a huge energy, it kind of matches the Ten of Cups, was kind of like hiding out behind it. So let's look at the Seven of Swords first. First thing that comes to mind is you're doing better than you think you are. And I think that's absolutely true. Because it's the thinking. The thinking is the way we spin stories is the killer. It kind of what I was saying here about Page of Pentacles, like you've taken this initial leap off the starting block and it was really hard, but what I keep sensing is that instead of celebrating yourself, you're just judging yourself for not taking another step, So I think that's kind of partly the Seven of Swords energy here, is like you're doing a good job and you're not giving yourself credit for it, The other thing is, like, there are things that are hidden, and it looks like it's things that either you've hidden from yourself, or other parts of you have hidden from other parts of yourself or you. It's like there are some secrets at play here. It all seems to be pretty self-navigated. I don't feel like anybody else is deceiving you necessarily. Not that they won't, but that's not what I'm feeling from this. I'm really feeling like you hiding things from yourself in some capacity. And it looks like what you're trying to do is like the parts of you that maybe feel shame or something, or like trying to hide their shame or hide whatever's surrounding the shame, or both, from you so that you don't see it. And But it also looks like whoever in you feels shame and is trying to hide it, they also, behind all that shame, have this Ten of Pentacles gift, right? There's a gift here at play. It's like this figure here is carrying these swords, these 5 swords, right? And 2 are being left behind. And I kind of see this as like the swords that he's carrying is like him carrying baggage that he doesn't need. In this case, anyway, like the 5 of Wands here is like maybe he's like carrying the internal conflict, the internal struggle, the voices, you know, the baggage, the things that tell you what's right versus what's wrong. When in reality, there is no right and wrong except what we decide. King of Swords, except what we decide, right? And if what we're deciding is right and wrong is just creating guilt and shame within us, we need to change something, right? Like our version of right and wrong does not seem to be helping the ones in us that still need healing. So step away from that. Step away from, I think, black and white thinking, maybe. Yeah. Step away from black and white thinking. And try to step away from comparison and shame and judgment. And just see what's there with clean eyes, with be as unbiased as possible. I think the only bias you can have is this wounded child in me needs help. Like, I think that's you know what I mean? There's nothing to shame yourself for. There's nothing. So I feel like this person's carrying these swords, and it's really just a heavy load of bullshit, right? Stories that we tell ourselves that keep us stuck. And then these 2 swords behind him, which are like the gifts, right? And so now we have these gifts. I also think this is like paring things down to simplicity. You know, if you're making a situation too complex or looking at it from too many angles or needing too many steps, and trying to like suss it all out with your mind, I feel like that's just a trap as well. So try to avoid that. Because I also see this as like, you don't need 7 swords, you need 2. So drop the rest and keep what's real, right? Because these other stories aren't serving you at all. I think when in doubt, always choose simple for the most part, because life is infinite, but our bodies are finite in terms of they're here now, on this planet, in this time and place, right? So whenever I get too confused, when I feel like I don't understand something or I'm lacking clarity or there's just too many things coming at me, I always just reground and recenter and come back into my body, because I'm just too far from the truth at that point. You know what I mean? It's infinite. So what I consider to be truth is what's aligned with my body, the earth, and the highest power, right? And so if I'm too far left or right, I'm not in my center. So whatever is being said or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, the stories that are being spun on this side of my field are not reality. So it's like if I notice, oh, I'm in confusion, I'm in a confusion story, I'm creating a lack of clarity because I'm not in my center, I reground, I come back into my heart space, I say, be here now, right? In this, be present, be embodied in this time and place. Now, how do I feel? And usually all those voices cease because they weren't even real in the first place. So not real in the sense of me here today and the things I need to do to feel safe and get through my day in a good way, right? Which is ultimately what I'm trying to do, is moment by moment, be the best I can be and feel as good as I can feel. Or at least be as real. For me, feeling good does not conflict with intense perceived negative emotion. So when I say feel good, I feel like I have to make that delineation for people, because me feeling good does not mean I feel good. Like, I could feel like shit, I could feel sad, I could feel like I'm in fear, I could feel restless, I could feel bad in some way, and still perceive myself as feeling good, because the difference for me is, am I addressing it and moving through it or not? Like, if I'm in avoidance, I'm obviously not feeling good, probably. But I feel good. My definition of feeling good is being aware of myself and being able to make choices that allow me to move through the emotion and truly resolve. So that's what I mean by feeling the best you can be. Are you the most you? Are you the most authentic you in each moment? And are you at peace with who you are? I think that's what I mean by feeling good. Anyway, these swords don't matter. They're not real. Pay attention to the swords that are. Reclaim the gifts that may have been missed because you were too focused on the stories here, right? So this Ten of Pentacles, is something in you that is really abundantly gifted. And that could mean that they're good at bringing resources in. It could be very practical, and that's sometimes Ten of Pentacles means wealth, right? So that could be it. But they could also just be like, this is somebody in you that has real talent. It seems like it's practical talent. That could mean like practical magic, which is kind of like my thing. Starting in the spirit world and then making things real is kind of, you know, my bag, but it doesn't have to be spiritual necessarily. It could also just be like, what are your skills? Are you really good at a craft? Are you really good at an art form? Are you really good at being a parent? Are you really good at cooking and you just want to make dinner for your family every night? Are you good at making a good meal? Are you good at nature hikes? It doesn't have to be about somebody else either. It's like, are you just good at being out in nature and that's what you want to do? You know, somebody in you just has a real talent, a real gift they want to express in the world. And they can't because this baggage is in the way, but they're right here and they're ready to go. So as soon as you clear the baggage, right, they're here for you and you can work with that energy. So if something's hidden in plain sight, and you just need to take the blinders off and remove the baggage, remove the unreality of it so that you can cut to the reality, which is somebody in you that's just full of radical, amazing gifts. Hope that makes sense. Talked a lot about that. Swords literally make me ranty because like as I'm downloading the energy, it's like it starts moving, like thoughts start moving. You know, that's the nature of it. So it's interesting. Okay, new circumstance. The Hermit. This is you. This is Virgo energy. Yeah, make time for yourself. It doesn't feel like you need to isolate. We have a lot of upright cards, which means you may be out in the world, or busy in some way, and it seems like that's fine. So what I really feel like here is make sure that you're striking a balance, make sure that you are taking time for yourself. And it seems like that you are in good balance there. I'm not feeling a lot of, some of you may be too isolated. And if you feel too isolated, then I encourage you to kind of get out. But I'm not really feeling too much of the other side. I don't think you're too busy. And I don't think that most of you are too isolated. Yeah, so with the Hermit coming up here in the new circumstance, it's just like make sure that you're taking time to really reflect on yourself because that's what's needed here. Because you are going to be stepping into the world at some sort of new capacity. That's why the shared wisdom thing is here. It's like you're inviting others in a new way. But it feels like we're right at the beginning of that, so it's still ramping up this month, winding up. You're right at a new place, so there's no need to hurry, right? But it is still kind of where you're going. So it's just tricky because there's this social aspect that keeps hopping up. Maybe you just need to no. It's like there's this call to rearrange your perception of yourself in relation to other people. Yeah, so it's not about being social or non-social necessarily. It's more about, can you be fully authentically yourself around others? So it is about boundaries a little bit. Maybe you need to set new boundaries. Maybe you just need to restructure your stories around your interactions with other people. Guilt, if guilt is coming up, usually guilt is an indication that you're letting people cross your boundaries in some way, guilt or anger. Usually anger is like, my boundary has been crossed and I don't know how to deal with it. And usually guilt is like, your boundaries have been crossed so much that you feel like you're not deserving of boundaries. So just look at that a bit. Usually guilt and anger are intertwined. I rarely find them separate. Usually they're just two aspects of the same thing. So anyway. Hermit. What else? So you need to restructure how you interact with the world and other people. How can you remain authentically yourself around other people? How can you give yourself what you need in a public space that isn't about giving other people what they need so that you don't have to worry about yourself, or giving other people what they need so that you feel safe? which is usually, you know, if we're the type of person that lets people walk all over us, it's usually because we feel safer that way. So that may be something to look at if that's one of your things. That's coming up pretty strongly. And I mean, you're an earth sign. Usually earth signs, the way they cope with stress is like helping other people with theirs, you know, so that they can avoid their own. That's a common way that earth signs are avoidant. It's very common to feel like you're keeping yourself safe by meeting the needs of everyone else around you. And so I would just encourage you to pull back from that. If and when you find yourself in public spaces with other people, start to just turn on your awareness. How do I react to things? How do I respond to things? How do I set up my defenses initially? Like, you know, like what are the defense mechanisms coming into a public space? And what is the agenda on all levels? Like, why do you feel like you have to do a certain thing around certain people or behave a certain way? And what can you do instead? And obviously this isn't like a one-time thing you're supposed to have this figured out. It's just start thinking about these things. I feel like the Seven of Swords could honestly be like, you know, the swords this person is carrying could be different ways that you kind of make yourself small, or even too big, but I doubt it. Make yourself small, probably, or change yourself in some way because you think it's benefiting others. And I think the important thing here is it's all perceived, because we all come into a public space with our own stories, and all of our stories are different. You know, I mean, we struggle with the same general things, but the way that they're angled via our mind is totally our show, how we've absorbed our unique trauma and created defenses around that unique trauma. That's unique to you. So, you know, it's like when you step into a public space and you're like, oh, I have to do this for this person so this person is okay. It's probably bullshit. I mean, unless they told you outright, if you don't do this, I'm going to feel unsafe or something. But that's a deeper, more vulnerable conversation, right? If you're just in a public space with people, it's like if you think you have to do this thing for this other person's comfort so that you can be comfortable, it's probably perceived. I mean, it's true in the sense that you will feel comfortable if you do this thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's actually happening. Like, you're creating the story around it so you can feel okay, and you've created these steps, right? But in reality, you feel, you know, fear for some reason, and this is the defense mechanism. If you can just cut to the fear itself and be like, why do I feel afraid in this situation? Then you can get a real answer and come up with a real solution instead of jumping through these kind of hoops of illusion to feel comfortable, right? So, because whatever that other person is dealing with in terms of their own stories, it probably has very little to do with whatever it is that you're doing, right? And whatever way you trigger them or don't trigger them is really not up to you. It's entirely up to their particular uniqueness, right? And you can't prevent that from happening, and you can't manipulate it as well as you think, usually, unless you know that person really, really well. So I would try to drop that. I'd try to drop the need to make other people feel a certain way for your own comfort, maybe. Or not necessarily drop it, I just mean be aware of it, try to drop the unnecessary behavior if you can, or cut back, or just see what you can do to kind of push against that bar a little bit. Simplify, get down to these two swords, you don't need the rest, right? And see what shifts. Again, that's kind of a long game thing, I understand that. But yeah, can you be your authentic self in a variety of different situations? Is what the Hermit is really asking you here. Okay. So just take some time for yourself, reflect, think about that. And that's not unique to you. We all do it on some level. I'm not saying that you're doing this thing specifically. And every Virgo is going to also have a different approach or different reasons why, and different variances of you know, extreme. So some of you, maybe this is brand new work. Some of you, maybe you've been doing this for a while. So I'm not saying these things to be like, you're doing this. I'm just saying that this is something to look at, because this is what, you know, this is the download I'm getting from the universe. That's all. And it's not about blame, shame, or judgment. It's about noticing and being intimate with yourself so that you can create the sufficient change to feel safer and more comfortable and have to expend less energy doing it, you know? That's all. And then you'll have more energy to give to other things. Your energy this month. The High Priestess. What zodiac? Is it Pisces? I feel like it's not Pisces. Anyway, it doesn't matter. High Priestess, you don't have all the information yet, and that's fine. If you try to crank it out, you're going to get lost in the nebula of these confusing, illusory swords, and we don't want that. So step out of the addiction to the need to know. Step into your physical space. Be more grounded. Set up sufficient boundaries and protection with your helping spirits and your energy system. And create a container of transformation for yourself. We've said that. That's all this stuff. Be kind to yourself, essentially, is what that means. Be kind and real with the parts of you that are hurting. And then this will reveal itself. The information that you need is an inside job, not an outside job. It's also not a mind job. And it also requires patience because you have to uncover things layer by layer. So you don't have all the information yet, that's fine. This is a time to rely on your gut instinct, to rely on your intuition, and to rely on your feeling, and to be open to what the answer is without needing to know, okay? Your environment this month will be the Ace of Swords reversed. For some of you, it seems like other people around you are just in a very different process. So they're not expanding in the way you are. They're not dealing with the same issues. They might not be as high-minded because you're coming into this month very high-minded, really thinking about the big picture, thinking about your role in it, thinking about your relationship with the powers that be, the universe, capital U, and your philosophy in the grand scheme of things. It's a really good place to be grounded in if it's showing up well, because if you keep that high vibration, everything you do is kind of a facet of that, and it's easier to look at the darker stuff because you're looking at it from this high place, right? So it seems like just in your environment, the people around you, for some of you, they're just not there. They're not in that high-minded space. They're not doing the same kind of work. They're not requiring the same things. And it almost feels like there's kind of dead air. Like, if you try to talk about it, it feels like the sword just going into the ground, just kind of like people covering their face and ears and burying their head in the sand. And interesting. So do you need support? If you do, please reach out either to me or to somebody in your life. The Hermit can kind of imply, this isolation. So maybe you feel a little separate from other people in your life. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's all, probably dependent on you. Somebody or an entity or something. It could even be a job. Like if this is a job situation, maybe you have a radical new idea that could really revolutionize the company, and this is your bosses and coworkers kind of just burying their heads, right? It could be something like that. Could be more practical oriented. Something in your environment or someone is just really not open to what you have to say at all. And so my suggestion would be to just walk away for now. It doesn't mean that you walk away forever. This could be triggering for you because we have this angle here to these swords. So maybe whatever this person is, burying their head in the sand, whatever, not wanting to hear what you have to say, it could trigger the Seven of Swords, the kind of cyclical thinking about things that aren't even ultimately true. Like, oh, maybe this person feels this way, or maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe this about this person in this situation, and you're just spinning your wheels. So don't. Come back into your body. Remember, the Hermit is here saying, yes, if you feel isolated, own it. Go into yourself, explore what's there, forget the rest, okay? The Hermit is also saying, change the way that you interact with other people. So, if this person is burying their head in the ground and not listening to you, you have a few options. You can just give it space for now while you figure out what you're doing and they figure out what they're doing. You could bring it up. I don't recommend you do it in this month just because it feels like not the thing to do. It feels like you're not ready, but I'll say it anyway for the future, or if that part doesn't apply to you, you may have to start a conversation and say, okay, this is how I'm feeling about your response. This is what I need, whatever. Especially if it's a partner or something, like you may have to do that. And that can start to open up the field for you interacting differently around other people. Ultimately, when you stand up and meet your own needs and communicate those needs and start showing up differently because you have good boundaries and you're not trying to just be mutable around other people, people around you start to change because they're used to taking. they're used to a certain presentation of you, and when that shifts, they have to adjust, and usually they're pissed about it, especially if it's people that don't have good boundaries, you know, because they're just not even aware. They're not aware of the shift sometimes. They're just aware that the shift has occurred, and they feel unsafe because what they were using to cord into you to feel safe is no longer happening. So it could just be something like that, where somebody that you really vibe with, especially probably on the thought-based level, you are suddenly not vibing because you've leveled up in a way that they haven't. And I think the best thing to do is to just reflect, take some time for yourself, or away from this person at least, and reflect on what has changed about you. What do you need now in relationships in general and in this relationship? And how can you communicate that in a way that kind of asserts yourself in the way that you need it to? And this could, be you walking away from somebody, although that's not what I feel either. I feel like it's fine, you're going to move through it, it's just weird right now, and you're not getting the support that you need from that person, so you'll have to seek it elsewhere or within yourself. Okay. Hopes and fears, Queen of Wands reversed. So there's something building inside yourself, something developing. It feels sacral. It feels very passionate and fiery. I think I said this to Cancer, so if you have Cancer in your chart as well. And it's just not ready to come out yet. It's not fully transformed. It's not fully developed yet, maybe. Could be like you have an idea for a project, but nowhere for that project to take shape yet. It could be something like that. You could be trying to get pregnant. You could be trying to have a baby with your partner. And if that's true, it looks like you'll get pregnant, if not this month, soon, which maybe what the reversal is. It could be a fear that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. Don't worry. What else? Yeah, or it could just be like a project you're passionate about. It's not ready to take off yet. Or it could just be a fiery, like as you're changing inside yourself and clearing out some of this shit, new stuff's going to emerge. That's what happens. It's kind of always more show as long as we're alive. So it's like something new is emerging that wants to be seen, but it's not quite ready yet. And so it's gestating. And it may just feel uncomfortable or tense. I'm kind of getting a pull to the Five of Wands energy, which either way can be kind of tense, like a nervous tension, right? So, because I struggled with this last month. So because this is building and it's a fiery energy, and it by nature it needs movement, and because it's not ready, there is a tension you're just gonna have to sit with, I think, because it still has to grow and form itself before it can be given a lane to express. And so there's going to be a tension. There's going to be a nervous tension between this desire for it to be released and the fact that it's not ready. You're just going to have to hold that, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And I think that's the fear, is just, what is this, what's happening, and what can I do about it, and not knowing what to do. And then when you don't know what's happening, you're spinning, right? So careful with that. Remind yourself this fiery energy is something in your body. It's something that you can directly communicate with. You can ask that energy itself, who are you and what do you need, right? And start working with it that way. The hope here is that eventually this will be able to take off, right? The project takes off, you get the new job opportunity, you get pregnant, you get the new partner, whatever it is. That feels good. It feels like it's neither a yes nor a no. It feels like this is inevitable if you do the work. And if you don't, if you get avoidant again, it's just going to go dormant again and nothing is going to happen. And so you have a choice here. If it goes dormant again, that's going to suck because it's going to get angrier, right? So the next time around, if you kind of need it again and start to work with it again and it starts to come out again, you're going to deal with an even bigger monster because you shut them away again when it tried to come out. And there's going to be anger and betrayal there. So this is when you need to engage your self-love and compassion. And I think you will. I'm giving you the warning, but I don't think you need it. Okay. Just explaining what could happen if you didn't, because you do have free will and I have to allow for that. So, nothing's ever set in stone. When I say, yes, this is going to happen, it's only, yes, this is going to happen if you do the work, right? So if you do the work, which I imagine you will, this will eventually go forward and grow and be able to be released. but you're going to have to let it gestate for as long as it needs to, which means that the tension is going to get worse. Because it's literally like the pregnancy thing. It's expanding inside you and has nowhere to go right now, so it's just going to keep getting bigger until it's ready. And you're just going to have to keep holding space for that, and nurture it and give it what it needs until it is ready. And eventually it will release, and you'll feel calm and still again. But this is an energy that does need to get out and express. So you can't shove it away. I recommend you don't. Just let it be uncomfortable. Familiarize yourself with this energy, and be patient with it. Yeah? Okay. You're not going to explode from this. It's just going to be a little tense. And movement work will always help with that, because it's like if you move your body, if you do dance or some sort of, trance or sports or anything that moves your body significantly, it moves the energy. So while this could be kind of, if you're more stagnant, if you're more sedentary this month, if it could kind of stay like a rock in your stomach that just feels really intense, and that would be more uncomfortable than if you moved it around a little bit and let it stretch through your body and kind of get a little bit bigger, because now you've got more surface area that it's kind of moving around, and that will feel way more comfortable. So I recommend you do some movement work. Okay, outcome, 10 of Swords. The end of a cycle, and I do feel grief. I don't feel big grief. I feel just a little stage of grief. And I think that grief is about kind of grieving maybe a small ego death, which ideally this would be an ego death. Like just cutting these energies out of your life and only keeping what's necessary. So with ego death, there's always a bit of grief. I mean, usually. Or it could just be you grieving, you stepping into a new you, into this, shared wisdom person that has this nice container of energy, that's being compassionate, that's grounded and embodied in themselves and aware of themselves and feeling joy because they can really move into the energies that they house, no matter how uncomfortable they may be. So, ideally you're this person at the end of the month, right? And that has moved through all this and become who you are with all those things that I just said. And so the grief may be grieving all the ways that you've held yourself back, all the ways that these stories or this version of yourself, this version of ego has held you back from your true gifts. And you may just need to grieve that. Take ownership of the ways that you've hurt yourself, and grieve the ways that you've hurt yourself. Grieve the fact that you did it. Grieve, the energies in you that were maybe victims of that, and sometimes just being victims of that means you got hurt, you never addressed it, and so that person in you just felt more and more and more unheard from you over time. Like the initial wasn't you, you didn't hurt yourself initially, but you hurt yourself, you perpetuated the pain by not healing it in the moment. And so it's like over time, over years and years and decades maybe, of not addressing those wounded parts in you, they just get more and more hurt because you continue to ignore them. And those are parts of you that you're ignoring. Would you ignore a crying child on the street? No. So don't ignore the crying child inside you, right? That's how I look at it anyway. I think there's going to be a little bit of grief around that in some capacity. But just remind yourself that the grief is part of it. It's not something you should avoid. Once you move through the grief, you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to feel cleaned of all of that shit, and you'll really be able to move on in a new way, so much lighter, with way more power and presence and authority and safety, grounding than you had before. And so I feel like you're set to launch off on a really exciting new adventure, something that's really aligned with your health and happiness, something that has something to offer others, which I think Virgos value in general. And so just make sure that you put on your own oxygen mask before putting on the child's. That's all I would say, is make sure that you're doing your inner work in a real way, so that when you are supporting others outside of you, you're not supporting others to help your own wounding. You're supporting others in a genuine way so that everybody gets something out of it. Like everyone genuinely feels more well. Everyone genuinely feels more happy. You for doing the work that you did, and them for receiving it. That's the real way to kind of look at what you can offer others. If you do it the other way first, like forget me, let's take care of everyone else, no one's being taken care of the way that you think it is, because you're totally operating on story. If you take care of yourself first and then you take care of everyone else, you're actually reading the situation appropriately because you're not in a place of wounding, and then you're actually taking care of others. Okay, so I think that's where we're headed. Can you kind of re-navigate the way that you interact with yourself and others so that you're getting what you need first and foremost, and then the other people around you benefit from that? I think that's where we're going. So that's beautiful work. I don't think you need to focus too much on how to benefit others. You need to focus on how to really take care of yourself, with the understanding that taking care of yourself inherently supports others. If you're good with you, then all that's left is the gifts that you're able to express and other people benefiting from that. And you holding a clear mirror to other people because you're not in your own shit. And so then everybody kind of naturally feels better, right? So that's where we're headed. Seems like really good work. You can do it. I know that I gave you a lot of warnings and things, but that's only because like this momentum is building and I want to keep up the momentum for you guys. So you totally can do this. I always want to let you know that you have options in terms of like, you have the free will. You could set all this aside and keep being avoidant. And I don't want to tell you that you can't, you know? And so that's where I'm coming from when I give these warnings. At the same time, I'd rather you not. And, you know, these are my reasons why. So I hope that you keep moving forward. I hope that you believe in yourself enough to do it and to take pride in it, because you've done a lot of good work and I want you to celebrate that, okay? You can always celebrate where you are before pushing for the next thing. Also, if you're tired, then take a break, you know? You don't have to push beyond your threshold. Just do what you can do, and stay on that, you know, growth edge of I feel challenged, but I don't feel overwhelmed, right? That's where you want to be. So there you go. That's the opportunity. You're in a much better place than you were before, and you'll continue to. This is just the next leg of the work. I think ultimately you want to do it because you do want to express your gifts in the world in a good way and have others benefit. I mean, who doesn't, you know? So there you go. I hope you have a good month. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see the next video, and I will see you, Virgo, in June. It's a weird thing to say. I was just telling Leo this. I was like, I can't believe it's already like almost summer. So we'll see you in the summer, and have a good month.